Hi everyone, welcome to this. This is my playlist on Bushido. I've created a new book called The Book of Bushido where I analyse what Bushido is. So please help me by pre-ordering a copy of that or ordering a copy if it's out. I'm going to do a short series of videos talking about the different things that are aligned to Bushido really, and what do we know about Bushido. So today we're going to talk about the word Bushido and how much power does that have. Now, when you first look into Bushido, everybody says, no matter where you go, it's like Bushido was invented in the early 1600s, maybe late 1500s, because the word appears and we see it. And because the samurai are at peace, then of course they all start philosophizing and talking nice, and everybody gets educated and education goes up and they all talk about moral standards, and therefore Bushido existed only from the year 1600. I personally 100% disagree with this. So first of all, it's about name, not thing. So what I mean by that is, let's have a look at this. We're on The Idiot's Guide to the I Ching. Let's have a look at that. That's a book. Yeah, it's a book. But how long have books been in existence over the use of the term book? How many different names for book are there in the English language, going back through Latin, through Anglo-Saxon, through different things? For example, mug or beer. That was a mug of beer, or a cup, this type of cup. How many different names have there been in the various languages of the UK for this? Now, if we look in history and we say, oh, all of a sudden the word cup is used at such a year, I don't know the year, but let's say the year 804. Suddenly we find the word cup is used, and then it's used loads, and then now, in the 20th century, there's a million uses of the word cup on the internet. Does that mean cups did not exist before the year 800 and whatever? Is that a case of, before that there was no such things as cups? The same is for Bushido. Now, of course, there are examples, sort of examples, where a word does mean the establishment of something. So, for example, computer. If you go through the history of the word computer, you can imagine it's there. To compute is an old Greek word, I think it's Greek, and it does mean exactly what it means. A computer is something that computes. But obviously the use of the word flares with the invention of the computer. So we can tell from a historical point of view that before the 1970s, 1980s, the word computers were just not that abundant, but then after that they were everywhere because it's there in the language. So we can say, Bushido appears in the language after 1600s, therefore it's only really focused there. Now actually, I've found the word Bushido, but in a different form. It's the same ideograms, but basically Mononofu no Michi is Bushido. So basically Mononofu no Michi, Bushido, it's pretty much the same thing. And I found that back in the 1400s. So we have found the path of the warrior back to the 1400s. But what we're looking for is the cup. When we study Bushido, we're looking for what is the cup, the physical thing. And now, of course, Bushido itself is not physical. It's an approach, it's a behavior. But yes, there were physical approaches, physical behaviors in the past that are now missing because we don't have video recordings of what they did. So we can't physically grab Bushido, but we can view it. So we're looking in history for what we're looking for. We're like, where can we find Bushido? Well, actually what we're looking for is morality and behavior. So this idea that Bushido only came about in the late 1500s, early 1600s, and before that it just wasn't there, is ridiculous, like outright ridiculous. Like before 1580, the samurai were chewing on hunks of meat and spitting and like, arr, and like beating women at the side and raping them and cutting people's heads off and be like, arr, I'm a pirate ninja. And it's like, because I'm from Cornwall, I am. So, West Country, cider drinkers. I'm a cider drinker. So that's my samurai before 1580. And then after 1580, they would turn Bushido and they're like, oh, one is enjoying the arts, don't you think? Absolute nonsense. Just because the word appears doesn't mean that chivalry and behavior was not checked before that. So what do we do? If the word Bushido comes about, then why is it we don't have it before? Well, of course, one of the reasons I believe that the word Bushido becomes the standard is because of a reason I believe most of the words become standardized, and that's the simple fact of the unification of Japan. To me, it is ridiculously coincidental that the word Bushido arrives in the 1580s exactly when Japan is unifying. And I bet you can do this with hundreds of Japanese words that just sprout out. It's just because Bushido is famous, we know about it. But there'll be hundreds of words in Japanese that the old word falls away and the new word comes up because Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Nobunaga, Tokugawa, and all those are bringing it together, and basically unification, and we get a single country under a single governed rulership. And then we find that dictionaries start to come about. The Spanish are writing dictionaries in Japanese at this point. The Japanese are writing dictionaries at this point. Suddenly, the word Bushido becomes standardized. It might not have been Bushido in the south. It might have not been Bushido in the north. But we know that Bushido flips around. As I say, I found it to 14 something, but in the form of Mononofu no Michi. And what this means is that everybody's gone, okay, that's the word we're using. Let's go with it. So, Right, so what do we have before that? Well, we have a word called kaho, which means family regulations, family rules. And these are without doubt a list of prescribed actions and behaviours which are considered chivalric or moralistic. So do you need any more proof that Bushido existed before the word Bushido becomes popular? No. So we have kaho, family rules. And this is don't gamble, don't do this, be righteous, be honest. If you took the word Bushido and Kaho and put them together and listed the rules of them and then took the titles away, you wouldn't know which one was Bushido and you wouldn't know which one was Kaho. It's absolutely a fact that standardized behavior, moralistic behavior existed, or rules of them existed in Japan before the word Bushido. So we absolutely have Bushido before Bushido. It's there. So what we're finding here is that we know that the samurai had codes of behavior. We know that in the 1600s, the codes of behavior became unified as the word Bushido, but they themselves were differentiated. And it wasn't until later, where in about the year 1900, 1899, 1900, that actually it gets written as one form after the samurai by someone who's born as a samurai. So it becomes easy to understand that Bushido is there, that it's an ideal. So that's my next point, is it's an ideal, not a reality. So chivalry is an ideal. Bushido, Kaho are ideals. These are things you should not be doing. Kaho is actually rules, like if you do this, you're going to get your head chopped off, you know what I mean? So Bushido is something you should do, but they're the same thing. It's a guidance for samurai behavior. So on the whole, if you read samurai history, samurai are ruthless and horrific, and they don't always follow Bushido. They don't always follow morality, but they have them. But this is the same as everyone in the world. Christians don't follow Christianity. Buddhists don't follow Buddhism. Knights don't follow chivalry. They have it. They try to. They attempt to. A certain percentage of them, of their actions, is in that direction, but it isn't complete. If a person lived 100% by chivalry or moral codes, they'd be a saint. It's like the Buddha or Jesus Christ. Buddha and Jesus Christ are people who lived by those ideals. They said, this is what you should do. Even if it means my death, I am going to do this. And some people did follow that ideal. But on the whole, most people do not. They simply do not follow it. But they have it. So Bushido, it clearly exists from the beginning of samurai times, and it probably exists way before samurai, but it has different names because standardization, and because Bushi, or warriors before the Bushi, were not called Bushi, so you can't call it Bushido. So, you know, you get this idea of going back to Chinese influences and Chinese terms and early Japanese terms, and the samurai were actually servants, and there's all that argument to go down that the word Bushido just comes about later as a standardization. Right, guys, so we're going to just wrap up there. Basically, just because the name of something appears at a certain time in history doesn't mean it didn't exist before then. With Bushido, we have to look for behavioral patterns. if you look at Japanese history, we absolutely find them in all of the chronicles, the documents, the histories, the myths, the mythology, the legends. It's all there. Even legends like Robin Hood in England. This is how you should act. People were not acting like that in medieval England. People dressed in green with feathers in their hair, shooting arrows and nicking your money, didn't often go and give it to the poor people. They normally kept to themselves and went on a piss up, right? Let's be honest. But the idea of Robin Hood has always been, you know, a staple, like this is what we should do. And hopefully 1 or 2% of your actions should be nice because morality or chivalry has affected you in a certain way. This is what Bushido is. So in this series of mini lectures, mini talks, I'm going to talk about the different aspects of Bushido. Please get a copy of my book because it really helps me. At the moment, it's on pre-order, but by the time you watch this video, it might already be out. So no matter what it is, click that order button and get yourself a copy and help me out.